left her lonely in tears. So they had a past relationship and something happened. He left and he was like, okay, why is this girl calling me now? Like, it's been years. What's going on? Yo, welcome to the 23rd episode of the Resolution Podcast, where we're breaking down storytelling tactics used in hip hop. I'm your host with the most, Alex Lacey. Today we're going to be breaking down Mobb Deep's Trife Life, which has probably one of the best examples of increasing tension that I think I've ever heard. So let's break this down in the ABS formula and but so, which is if you don't know about that, go watch my, I think 21st or 20th episode where I break down that. It's probably the only storytelling framework you're ever going to need. And I developed an exercise that I had described at the end of that. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave a link to it right up here. And if I was to break this song down into 5 sentences, it would be, it was just another day. I was drinking a 40 and I got a call from a girl who asked me to meet up. But at the meeting spot, the black caravan showed up. So we booked it because we didn't know who was in it. And the moral of the story is to stay alive rather than to find out who is in it. And this is how the song increases tension. And he has, was it 9 ways? Yeah, there's like 9 instances where the tension just keeps increasing. And I can leave a link to the song in the description. So first is having the intuition. He states this pretty early on in the song. He says he was just chilling, just drinking a 40, and then he got a call from a girl who hasn't picked up the phone in years, and it was because he left her lonely in tears. So they had a past relationship, and something happened. He left, and he was like, okay, why is this girl calling me now? Like, it's been years. What's going on? And he starts thinking of like all these ways of like, is this like a setup? Is she trying to get me like killed or something? And that's having the intuition. Second was arming themselves, just because he had this intuition. He was telling his boys, yo, we just got to get prepared because we don't know exactly what's going to go down. So we got our gats for precaution. So, I mean, that he just says that in the song. So first was having that intuition. Second was like arming themselves, getting ready for that thing that they didn't even know was really going to happen. And then having assumptions about what might happen. That kind of ties back to the intuition, but he's kind of first it was the intuition of like, why is she calling me? Like, this is weird. The having assumptions is actually he's visualizing what actually could happen. And he was thinking she might have a whole battalion of Bucktowners waiting for us to hop off the train and surround us. So basically he's like, yo, this could really be a setup because this is a weird situation. And she called again, and he said, my blood curdled. And that was his first inclination of a personal reaction of like, whoa, what's going to happen? He's super nervous. So he has a tuition, and then he talks about how they're arming themselves. And then he talks about the assumptions that could happen when they got off the train. And then he talks about she calls again to like set up a meetup spot, which is in Myrtle, which is in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He says, my blood curdled, which is like a personal reaction. Because we've all had that feeling of like something just isn't right. Like your skin is crawling, I guess is another metaphor for that. And then they end up leaving. So they're Bed-Stuy bound and they're far from home and on unknown ground. So having the situation of, is this a setup? And if it's a setup, we need to be ready. And we don't know how ready we need to be. And then also it's on unknown territory. We don't know anyone. So those 3 things alone is so stressful. Like the stress just keeps increasing. And then he has like a personal reaction while he's on the train talking about my heartbeat is racing like a cardiac patient. And he only has 2, he notes only 2 like personal reactions of like his body and like the status of his blood flow and his nerves. He does that twice in this song just to really give the imagery of like what's going on with him internally. So that was 5, another personal reaction. So he has the intuition. He talks about them arming themselves. He starts having assumptions about what might happen. She calls, and his blood is being curdled. He has another personal reaction on the train. The sixth one is he establishes, so when they get off the train, not a soul is there. Nobody. And if you're in a super high stressful situation like that and you're going into something that you don't even know what's going to happen, not seeing anyone around, that's almost like I almost visualize it as like a war zone. Like, you know how when a battle is about to take place, the army kind of clears out people and just like, yo, you need to get out of here. You need to evacuate. There's going to be a ton of violence. We don't want to get you killed. That's what I'm picturing when they get off the train and see nobody's there. And then a black caravan shows up. And it's not only a black caravan, it's unknown because he says, but hold up. That's when a black caravan rolled up. Every angle of the car was smoked out and tinted, so we couldn't even tell if the enemy was in it. You get this car that is like blacked out. You have no idea who's in it. You're already terrified and stressed out because you don't know how prepared you need to be. And then you see this thing that rolls up. You don't know who's in it. And then just as the nerves are increasing more and more, he's talking about how he's arming himself. It's like, yo, my legs didn't froze up. I grabbed my pound, which is like slang for gun. He grabbed his pistol, and I don't know if he like took it out of his holster. He doesn't specify that, but he's ready. And then he had thoughts about like, yo, this could also be like cops. We don't know. We know this because it says it might have been TNT, and I wasn't trying to wait and see. TNT is an acronym for Tactical Narcotics Team. So it could have been a setup. Now that I'm thinking about it, she could have called like the Tactical Narcotics Team and like just had the feds, like had a setup for the feds. But he didn't know. The resolution, and we finally get the, like the tension is released. They just book it out of there. And he says we jetted through Marcy because D's ain't bagging me, which Marcy's is short for Marcy's Projects, which is in Brooklyn as well, and D is shorthand for detectives. So it makes sense that like that's the resolution of that story. That's how the whole problem and all the stress that was going up and up and up, that's how it was all resolved. So to break down those 9 ways that he was increasing, they call it increasing or developing a problem when it comes to storytelling. And that is, he has the intuition. He and his boys start arming themselves in hopes that they might be prepared for what's coming, which they don't even know if anything is going to happen. And then having kind of visions of what might happen. And that's actually another thing about the mind that I've been very interested in lately is the mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So the more you imagine something, your brain can't tell the difference. That's like why we see things when we're sleeping, even though we don't have our eyes open. So the more you imagine something, even if it's not true, the more you imagine it and the more you dwell on it, the more your mind's going to think it's real. And that's another thing too, of like, we suffer more in imagination than we do in reality. And that's a quote from a Stoic book that I've been reading a lot. It's so true. I mean, I speak for myself. I definitely suffer more in imagination than I do in reality. There are some situations that never end up happening, but they keep happening up here. So the fact that he is having assumptions and dwelling on them and visualizing them makes it a lot more stressful just for him. And he starts like saying, yo, this could happen. She might have got a whole battalion of Bucktown is waiting for us to get up off the train and surround us. So that's what he's going through right now, is like having the assumptions of visualizing it. So just naturally, he's going to get more stressed just from his imagination. And then she called, and he's already having this reaction, and his blood curdled, and so he's already just like up in arms. Then he has the personal reaction when he's on the train getting there. Like, my heartbeat is racing, like, I don't know what's going to happen. Then he gets to the setting, and it's like the calm before the storm, like nobody's there. He saw not a soul. And so it's like, whoa, what's going on? Nobody's here. And then there's the caravan that rolls up. He armed himself, and then he realized, oh, this could also be the cops. So either way, we don't want anything to do with these people at all. So, and they resolved that whole situation just by booking it home. Just live to fight another day. So the moral of the story that I got from that is sometimes the only way to win isn't to play. Just leave it alone. If the fight isn't worth it, just get out of there. Live to fight another day. So I really hope this helped. And next week, we're going to be breaking down how big L actually increases tension as well and helps develop a problem further and further and further. So we just keep getting more and more engaged. So I will see you next week for that and hope you all have a good one. Peace.